The April 10th, 2025 Des Moines City Council meeting is now called to order. Councilmember Mahoney will now lead us in the pledge. Please stand if you're able.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Matt. I just popped that on you. Didn't let you know. I know, didn't let you know how to do it. It's a good thing you have it memorized, though. So, all right. So, to all the public joining us here tonight, welcome. Thank you for attending. And for those watching online or on Channel 21, please know that we cannot attend to our phones from the dais. So, if you do experience technical problems, please don't text us. Please email cityclerk@desmoineswa.gov. Let the record show that 6 council members are present, and Councilmember Nutting is expected to join us in a matter of minutes. I'll make sure to acknowledge him at a good break when he does join us. Do we have any correspondence not previously received by the council?
No, Mayor.
All right, thank you. So it's now time for public comment. We ask that you keep your comments respectful and recognize that any person speaking or acting in a way that's disruptive will be asked to leave the meeting. When you come to the podium, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and city of residence when you come forward. So we have first up, Victoria Andrews.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, staff, and neighbors. For the record, I'm Victoria Andrews, and I live in Des Moines. I'm here tonight to thank Deputy Mayor Steinmetz and Councilmember Axiger for taking the time on a beautiful Saturday afternoon to join a large group from my senior living community and many, many others to show support for our democracy. Our group, Seniors for Democracy, began with 10 and has swelled to over 200. We realize we are in this for the long haul, that one nationwide demonstration isn't enough to have an impact. So we are going to be collaborating with the brand new Indivisible Des Moines group for regular events, and we'll be showing up, rain or shine, at Big Catch Plaza once again on April 19th for the next nationwide demonstration. You note that I'm not using the word protest. The Seniors for Democracy organizers are emphasizing positive messages, and we were overwhelmed by the response from the community to our signs and waving. The honking, high fives, smiles, and waves were so heartening. I only counted 6 rude hand gestures, but literally hundreds of supportive community members. I think that shows that people really do want to protect democracy and our Constitution. They understand that we were there to defend our fellow humans, both old and young, and the life we have all enjoyed as Americans. I came of age during the time of John F. Kennedy, and I am participating in this movement now because of his words, which I'm sure you all remember. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. I hope I'll see all 7 of you on April 19th from 1 to 2 p.m. at Big Catch Plaza. And I hope the crowd is much, much bigger than the 400 to 600 plus who turned out last Saturday. It will be an opportunity to talk to a lot of your constituents and find out what they care about and hear that you care too. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Is there anyone who came to the meeting tonight wanting to speak during public comment but did not realize that you needed to sign in order to do so? I'll give you an opportunity right now if you'd like to come forward.
Thank you so much, Mayor Buxton. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. First, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. I'm here to just receive the proclamation for Black Wellness Week. My name is Christina Blocker, and I just wanted to thank you, and I always like to talk about targeted universalism. The reason why I bring that up is, as so many of us realize, when we think about targeted universalism, and how that impacts folks that have utilized wheelchairs, right? When we focus on creating supports and systems for some of our community members that don't have the same access or who might need additional support, it really creates an opportunity for all of us, right? When we think about the impact of curb cuts, I like to use this example. So many of us use it. I've used curb cuts as a mother that has pushed a stroller. I know FedEx workers use curb cuts. And so when I think about the impact, I give that example when I think about Black Wellness Week, in the very same way it does the same thing. Through the work and the opportunity to celebrate Black Wellness Week through last year's acknowledgement, we were able to do far more outreach in our communities around making sure that folks are getting their blood pressure checked, making sure that they're screening for diabetes, and so many other opportunities. And there were so many other community members that didn't identify as Black that were participating as well to get the same kind of wellness checks as well. And so I just wanted to thank you all for this opportunity to thank you for this proclamation. And I always like to say, when we think about our community members that don't have the same access, we're really creating opportunities for all of our community to have an increased awareness about the things going on around them, but also issues that impact them as well. So thank you again for this proclamation. Thank you all for your leadership, and just really an honor to receive your support on this.
Thank you, Christina. I do have a question for you. So tell me the name of if somebody wanted to participate or support the organization, do you have a 501c3?
No, so this is a great question. So we are in the so we have a business. That's not the business that's doing this work. We initially had been doing it with the Washington State Department of Health through some
like a partnership.
through health equity grants. But we do have a community foundation that has asked if they could set up a fund on behalf of us, and then that way we could start the process of going through pursuing a 501c3. So with that, if folks did want to invest in this work, they could go through the community foundation. And so I can make sure to send follow-up material.
Well, so just for because it's on video and recorded, so what's the name?
Oh, Greater Tacoma Community Foundation.
Greater Tacoma Community Foundation, and you can find them online?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And then Elevate Black Wellness is how we've been doing all of the work.
Okay, good. Thanks, Christina. We'll be doing the proclamation shortly, not too long into the meeting this time. Last time, I think it was a long time.
Oh, and I forgot to add, our governor, Bob Ferguson, has also passed a Black Wellness Week proclamation, so just to amplify the impact of it. So again, thank you for your support. Thank you all for your leadership. I appreciate the time it took to work on this, and again, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Okay, so there we go. Pass that back. Okay, so now it's time for committee chair reports, and we're going to start off with a report out of the Finance Committee with Chair Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor. So last week, our Finance Committee met. We had a couple of things we looked at. We typically look at monthly reports on the general fund report. Our revenue was slightly up. We had some expenses that were a little higher than we anticipated, but a lot of this gets shifted from week to week. We had to incur some costs for elections from last year. But all in all, Jeff Wren, who's doing a fantastic job, doesn't feel too alerted by anything. It seems pretty norm, so we felt good about that. Something that'll be on our consent agenda tonight, I know it went before the Economic Committee and it came before the Finance Committee. There's a long-range forecast coming out, a bid to have consultants do a long-range forecast for financial planning for our future. I think it's going to be about $68,000, and I think it's going to be money well spent. And we also kind of reviewed the investment policy. There's a few changes. I don't think it had changed since the early 2000s. So Jeff was working on that and his team, and I thought they did a good job. And then just a quick ARPA update. And then the last thing that was most impressive is our finance team received a GFOA budget award, and I cannot remember what exactly it means. I think it's general fund something or other, but the fact is that, and Jeff's not here to tell me what it was, but the fact is that they were recognized for their stellar work. They did see where there was opportunity where they could even be better, and they were really challenging themselves to do so. So I thought that was great. And then just today, I had the PSRC transportation meeting, and like all entities, we were we're very nervous about the federal funding, but now there's a lot of nervousness about the state funding. There's a lot of discussion about budgets and tariffs and cost. Obviously, you've heard in the news that the legislature has passed budgets, but our governor doesn't want to tax that particular way, and because he believes it'll be challenged in court and so forth. So there's kind of some battles going back and forth. So there's a lot where I think any projects in this city are pretty well set. There is some nervousness about projects in the future. So there was a little discussion about the legislative agenda. There was also, we got a report on the status of the roads across the state. And because infrastructure's been neglected, there's actually nearly 20% of our roads are considered almost undrivable because of the funding and so forth, and they need immediate repairs. There's a next group, like from 20 to 60, that's pretty high, where the maintenance is beginning to get expensive. The problem is infrastructure is so expensive, and everybody wants good roads, but nobody wants to pay for them. So there's that. Of course, the tariffs were another big concern for construction materials and everything else. Mayor Ralph, who's the chair, said this quote, and I wanted to get it. I put it down because this sums up: the cost of projects are going up, but not doing the projects will cost more later. And it's true. So I feel good about some of the things we're doing, trying to push forward on the fishing pier and the steps and some other things in town, because I think in a few years they could be another 20 or 30% higher. Who knows? So it was like I said, a meeting with nervousness about the future. So it was one of those where we can go ahead and get this stuff done, but a lot of this other stuff that's slated for the next several years is very squishy and may have to be pushed out and are reprioritized. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next up, I have Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, who attended a regional meeting, I think, last night.
Yes,
And so
the Sound Cities Association Public Interest Committee, or Public Issues Committee, and it was a pretty hot meeting, frankly. Started off with a legislative update, which is still like trying to nail Jell-O to a wall. What's actually happening, except that we do know some things have died, and that's good. Some things died, and that's bad, such as the mosquito fleet bill, but that'll come back. We're going to hear the legislative update later, so I'm not going to spend any time on that. But the biggest issue was the King County wastewater rate proposal system, which they're trying to do some new things at the behest of the county council. They're attempting a 20-year forecast of what rates are going to be like, and they're really seeing, given what their expenses are and the increase in population and density, some huge increases coming. For 2026, the proposal is a 7.5% rate increase that then gets passed along to the consumer. But in 27, a 12.75%, in 28, a 12.75%, in 29, a 13.5%, same in 2030 and 2031, until finally 2032, we come back down to 7%. This, and there was a lot of consternation amongst all the members of the PIC about how can we endorse something that's just raising that fast, way above the cost of inflation. Of course, there was a lot of justification and the rationale behind it, but as one PIC member from Kirkland pointed out, we're going to be seeing exactly the same kind of rate increases coming next month from the solid waste, King County solid waste system. And there was quite a bit of discussion about trying to have a regional or an overall council to monitor the rate increases so that they're not just one over here and one over here and one over here and one over here, and then finally you realize, my gosh, I can't even afford I barely got into this house, and now I can't afford to have the house and pay for the wastewater and solid waste. So that's something that will be addressed probably with the next King County executive, but since there is a campaign coming up, that's going to be something that everybody will pursue. They also addressed a survey that was done from Sound Cities Association, particularly regarding the PIC and how effective it was and what could be done. And it's really nice to see an organization really looking internally to see how they can serve their members better. And I think there were a lot of really good ideas there that people were quite interested in. I know I found the networking events very helpful. I've gotten to know people from other cities. I get a sense of what they're doing, and I can call them up and ask, hey, how are you guys dealing with this? And maybe a way to formalize that somewhat within Sound Cities Association. The other thing is the levies that are coming. And it's become very clear now that King County is going to be sucking up a lot of the air for property tax levies in the next 3 elections. There's one you may have received your ballot recently for the automatic fingerprint identification system. And then there's the parks levy renewal. We were told that what appears to be the final product is very similar to what was presented to us from Deshaun Quinn. It's slightly smaller, but we got more money directed towards the cities. And given what we had to work with, those are pretty good things. But that's going to be another big property levy. And then in November, there will be the emergency medical services levy, which again is pretty significant in a place as big as King County. And a lot of this is the cost of providing services, but it doesn't leave much room to consider other needs in the county, because King County has the big levy on the ballot. And frankly, although the parks levy has been individually tested last fall, and there seemed to be a lot of support for it, there is a point at which the voters are just simply going to have levy fatigue. And that way, as we found out last year, asking the voters to increase the levy upon themselves it isn't a popular thing. So I don't know how all this is going to play out, but that's the other sort of big issue that was reported out and was the subject of quite a bit of discussion. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the reports. I do want to acknowledge at this point that Councilmember Nutting has joined us remotely, and he's up on the screen. So thanks for joining us, Councilmember.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next up, we have our city manager's report, and this week we have Assistant City Manager AJ Johnson-Newton with us, and she's going to take the baton here.
Hi, good evening, Council. Let's see, get my microphone here. My name is AJ Johnson-Newton. I am the acting city manager for this week. I want to thank the council and their and staff for their support. And so we do expect City Manager Caffrey back in the office on Monday. So, Catherine, if you're watching, log off, and I'll see you on Monday. One of the things I wanted to just follow up on before I got into the city manager report was the GFOA award. It actually is the Government Finance Officer Association Award, and we received it for a distinguished budget presentation. So while Finance Director Jeff Friend is not here, we do have Eric Mandelis, another talented member of the finance team, our finance operations manager. So I just wanted to acknowledge them, so thank you for bringing that up. First up on the city manager's report was the State of the Court address, but we will need to reschedule that. I do apologize. And so we will be looking at bringing that back forth to the council in May. So then our next item up is I'm going to call up Rebecca Dinning, our Community Development Director, and she's going to talk a bit about our efforts to have our community members apply for our airport committee, and then continue the discussion that the council was having last week on ADUs.
Hello, Mayor Council. The Airport Advisory Committee applications are live on our website, so we're asking everyone to spread the word. We have started pushing it out on social media and will continue. So our hope is to basically collect the applications, and then when we bring those requests back, we'll go through the normal process of bringing that back, and we'll bring it back to you with the proposed resolution to establish the committee with the applicant, so it'll all kind of come back as one process. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. So please get out there, spread the word, get some applicants in there, and that's what we're going to do. And so we have Alicia Jacobs coming up with our land use planner here to give an updated accessory dwelling unit presentation to continue the discussion.
So I do want to possibly insert here, this is a little bit last minute without, we do have a guest in the room tonight, and so before we begin this conversation, it could be a little bit longer. I would like to move this conversation to after the consent agenda. I don't see that being very long, and that way we can honor our guest and do the proclamations and then continue with the conversation, if that's okay. Well, all right, so let's move on. Thank you so much, Alicia, I appreciate you. You got some extra steps in today. So if we can proceed to the consent agenda, would the city clerk please read the consent agenda?
Item 1, approval of vouchers. Item 2, approval of minutes. Item 3, Black Wellness Week proclamation. Item 4, contract with FSC Group for long-range financial plan and development impact analysis. Item 5, 4th of July drone show at the marina, and that concludes the consent agenda, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Do I have a motion? Deputy Mayor Steinmetz for the motion. Do I have a second? Councilmember Mahoney for the second. Is there an item that a council member wishes to pull? Councilmember Harris.
Item 5, please.
Okay. Any other items that a council member wishes to pull? Councilmember Nutting, are you good?
Yes, Mayor, I'm good at this time.
All right, thank you. All right, without further ado, all in favor, raise your right hand. Councilmember Nutting, are you raising your hand?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
No worries, passes 7-0, thank you. So I will pass item number 5 to Councilmember Harris.
Thank you. I guess I have a couple of questions. First of all, did we ever actually vote on the 2024 program? I could not find it anywhere. And so, I mean, I know we funded it, obviously it happened, but I couldn't find that.
I can address that, council member. So I was the interim city manager at the time. And so we kind of looked back because we received this question. And there was a meeting where I told the council, I need to sign the contract. So I need confirmation that we're good to do that. And then we'll bring it back for approval. But we were running out of time for the actual event. So we mentioned that to the council. I signed the contract. We then took it to the Lodging Tax Committee to get their approval, which they did, and we forgot to bring it back to the council. So that was our mistake. It was included in the final budget that the council approved, and it was approved by the lodging tax, but the actual contract did not physically come back to the council.
Okay, got it. So next thing is the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee required to publish any kind of work product? I mean, I literally couldn't find any record of that discussion. And in 2023, they did a detailed memo of what the event would be like and so forth. So do they keep minutes and that sort of thing?
We do not have minutes for those meetings, but we do have agendas, and I can look for that and provide you with that.
Okay, I'm just, is it the city's intent to, in the note we got today, to extend this out another year in order to obtain this? It looks like it's less expensive than last year. So are we committing to like 2026 as well as 2025?
Yeah, if the council approves the agreement, we would be contracted to use their services both for 2025 and 2026. and because of signing that contract, we would receive a discount.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to vote no on this. I mean, there are other vendors out there, and the public, regardless of anyone's feelings about it, there are other vendors, and we should be pursuing competitive bids. There's just a real difference in quality, as I suspected when we started. We got, a lot of concerns that it just was not that great, and like any technology, it's getting better and better. And the proposal, if it's like it was in 2023 and 2024, it's just no longer competitive with the area in terms of the product. I understand the concerns about the noise and so forth, but the original thing was that it would alleviate somehow noise and so forth, and it has not reduced neighborhood fireworks one iota. And I can provide studies that it does not provide a meaningful reduction in pollution. And frankly, I'll just close by saying the voters spoke about property taxes last year. They wanted us to be more disciplined. And frankly, this is $45,000 premium that you could spend in any number of other better purposes. So that's it.
Right. Any other comments? I'll take Councilmember Mahoney and then Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
I am in full support of this. I think if we can save some money by going on a 2-year agreement, I think that's a great thing. I was very impressed, and I heard completely the contrary. I heard a lot of satisfaction. As far as the noise, we can only do our best to prevent some of our residents from blowing off stuff. Of course, we got Normandy Park next door to us, and unfortunately, they do not have a moratorium on fireworks, which complicates and creates part of the problem. I found the event to be more friendly for families, safer too. I saw a lot of kids and children, and I would say that there's sometimes during a fireworks event, there's a little bit of element of meanness, and I didn't see that at that event. I was kind of impressed with the crowd and I thought it was friendly. And this company has a reputation, and it's a good one. I look to our friends in SeaTac that tried to do the same thing and did it for less, and most of theirs ended up in Angle Lake. So I think sometimes I agree that the technology is going to get better, and I think the competition over time, but at this juncture, sometimes you got to go with the one that bring you, so I'm going to support this.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Steinmetz?
Yeah, I'm going to support this because we're signing a 2-year contract and getting a discount for that, which is a good thing. That is being wise with people's money. 2 is that this is a good company. There's no question about that. They do much bigger, more sophisticated shows and have won awards for those, but we're getting the show that is within at least our budget. And it was a huge step up from the first year, 2023 to 2024. And everybody told me they saw the difference. I'm not sure why anybody else wouldn't have, but, certainly all the feedback that I saw. And then, lastly, the point of the drones was never to cut down on neighborhood fireworks. The point of the drones was not to add to the cacophony that already exists. And we have reduced that noise this much simply by using drones, and then we did reduce the pollution into the sound, which hurts the animals out there. There are a lot of good benefits to that. And as a consequence, this is a good deal. It's a great community event that people enjoy and people want and people expect the city to put on. The funds for this are coming out of the tourism bucket. The only other things that could be spent on would be some kind of promotional advertising to try to bring people into town or other kinds of festivals. That is what the tourism funds could be spent on. To put out that there are other things more worthy that we could be spending on. I even heard that somebody suggested it was a trade-off between the drone show or an animal control officer. Animal control officer is paid out of the general fund. It's a completely different bucket of money. Anybody that knows anything about city finances understands that. And hopefully we all have explained that enough so that the vast majority of people in town do understand that. This is a dedicated funding source that we can spend these funds on, and that's exactly what we're doing. And it's a good use of those funds because it's a community event that brings people together. So I'm voting yes.
Before I go to you, Councilmember Harris, I'll give opportunity to anybody else that had a comment. No comment from okay. No? All right, so Councilmember Harris, go ahead.
So, I'll just, in the 2023 lodging tax advisory thing, you have to put a justification for it, and you have to put, how many people you expect to show up and what the benefits are going to be. And the original proposal they signed off on stated that there would be 100 overnight stays in hotels here. And I'm about 99 out to 4 nines certain that 100 people did not visit Des Moines simply and do an overnight stay just for a drone show. That is not to say that it wasn't a wonderful experience, but as we try to do something meaningful in terms of tourism and promotion, we got to stop fudging this stuff and at least provide some kind of metrics and be able to say this worked and that didn't work and so forth. And I attended an event in Sequim a couple of months ago, and it was just far superior. And I object to the fact that this contract, the footer, says that, September of 2024. The city should have done a bit more diligence in terms of at least, investigating the competition out there to find out if there are better products. That's it.
Okay, I do have a couple comments, not to rehash too much, but I do want to make it clear in regard to trying to measure tourism and the response of overnight stays. I'll drive all the way to Oregon to go to a kite flying or a sand event and come home. So it's hard to measure tourism effects, and so when somebody's guessing at that's going to be a hard thing. I've been to stuff all over this entire state in one day without staying overnight. So if it's a cool thing. I think everybody mentioned everything that needs to be said in response to the original statement. Other than, for me, there has been maybe 2 other things since I've been elected where I have gotten this much organic response from the community, and this was positive. People writing, people talking to me. And I do have to say, it was interesting, I made a point when I went down there last year. I started at the beach park and I thought, I've got about 2 hours right now. And I just thought, I'm gonna walk and talk to people from the beach park all the way to the harbor master's office. And I only ran into 3 people I knew. Everybody else was a brand new person who didn't even know who I was. And I loved talking to people who had come from all over the region. Now, did any of them stay overnight? Don't really know, but I know that people came from as far as Sequim and Shelton and Eatonville, and some people were visiting from out of town with friends. So it is a pretty big tourism draw, and the citizens here really like it. They've written a lot. So I feel very comfortable in voting in favor of this, especially considering that organic feedback. So without further ado, all in favor of item number 5. Because we already have to specific motion because we
Need
told
a
it.
motion.
Okay, who would like to make the motion? Councilmember Mahoney, go ahead.
I'll be glad to. Here, let me find it real quick. Hang on. I just had it.
Okay,
I move to approve the proposed agreement from Sky Elements Drone Show for 2025 4th of July celebration and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement substantially in the form as submitted.
I have a second. Second, Deputy Mayor Steinmetz. All in favor, raise your right hand. Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, Councilmember Oxiger, Councilmember Grace Matsui, Councilmember Mahoney, Councilmember Nutting, and myself in favor, all opposed. Councilmember Harris opposed. It passes 6-0. Thank you. Excuse me, 6-1. 6-1. Thank you. All right, on to unfinished business. Thank you. What would I do without help? That's exactly why we put it ahead. All right, thank you so much. And thank you for being here, Christina. Okay, we are reading the proclamation tonight in regard to Black Wellness Week. Whereas the tradition of Booker T. Washington's Negro Health Week was historically spotlighted health disparities in the Black community, fostering advocacy and education, and whereas holistic well-being encompassing physical, mental, emotional, and social health is a priority for all communities, and whereas addressing health disparities in Washington State, especially within the Black community, calls for initiatives that are both inclusive and resource conscious, and whereas a community-driven approach focusing on leveraging existing resources and capacities is essential for the effective implementation of Black Wellness Week. And now, therefore, the Des Moines City Council hereby proclaims April 14th through the 18th, 2025 as Black Wellness Week and urges all residents to join them in this special observance. Signed this 10th day of April, 2025. There we go. And Christina, come on up. Or Bettina can too. So. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. So, because we postponed part of our conversation to move the consent agenda up, we will go back to that conversation and invite Alicia up. We're going to have our discussion, a little presentation in our discussion in regard to accessory dwelling units.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are here today to continue last week's discussion on the accessory dwelling unit regulations update that is required by new House Bill 1337. To recap, HB 1337 requires all local governments in Washington State planning under the Growth Management Act to update their ADU regulations to comply with HB 1337 by June 30th, 2025. Okay. Okay. Last week we went through these proposed amendments that city staff put together, and these amendments show minimum compliance with HB 1337. The discussion focused mainly on these three categories: number and configuration, size, and parking. So we're going to go through these one by one, and I do have a slide for each topic, but let me know if you want to discuss after each slide or if you want to discuss at the end. For number and configuration, city staff proposed permitting at least 2 ADUs in any configuration. During last week's discussion, we received some questions about whether increasing the number of ADUs per lot was an option and whether utilities could handle this. So staff has proposed some options for consideration, and we would like to hear how the council would like staff to move forward on this topic. For size, staff proposed keeping our existing ADU minimum size of 350 square feet and increasing the maximum to 1,000 square feet. Modifying the size requirements is an option, and staff has provided some of those options based on research to see what other cities have been doing. So there's an option to retain, modify, or eliminate our current minimum square footage, and there's an option to increase maximum square footage across all residential loans that permit ADUs. We could increase the maximum based on residential zone or increase it based on lot size. So the chart on the right shows our residential zones and some square footage options, just so you have an idea of what it could look like. And we'd also like to hear how the council would like us to proceed with this. For parking, there's also some options that we have. Staff proposed maintaining our current requirement of 1 stall per ADU and incorporating the bill's requirement of no required parking within a half mile of a major transit stop. Staff has proposed some additional parking options. However, we do want to note that there are some future concerns with eliminating parking in areas that will be increasing density in the future. So we would like your input on how you'd like us to proceed.
I'll start with Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, and let me kind of come back to the at least 2 ADUs. I'm not sure what the at least means. Does it mean at least 2 on the, if you're going to do 1, you got to do at least 2? Or you understand why the wording is a little awkward? Yeah.
Our code, we have to allow at least 2. We can allow more than 2, but our regulation has to allow every homeowner at least 2 ADUs, whether you build 2 or 1, but we can allow more as well, which was part of the discussion last time.
Okay, and that we have to allow 2 is because of the state legislation.
Correct.
And did they define what an ADU is?
Yes.
As distinguished from a condo, as distinguished from the middle housing stuff that you can build? How do we?
Correct. There is a formal definition that we would incorporate into the regulation. And I think it is in the proposed attachment that was in the original in there. But it can be condominiumized, so I don't want to change that from the definition that you, when you said condo, because a condominiumization is allowed under the new regulations.
But like under the missing middle bill, you can do
It's
6 townhomes, for example.
Possibly, well,
could be
if you
pulled off
guys
in-
chose to go that many units per lot,
Right.
correct.
But, okay, and then, I mean, and was there any definition of the size of the lot that could get the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4
No,
in the bill that we have to comply with?
under the state legislation, all lots get 2 ADUs, but they still have to meet setbacks. So not necessarily can every lot fit the 2, because you still have to meet our requirements for setbacks. But the rule still says you could fit 2, but there's ways around that, because your ADU can be cut out of your existing house. So to say that some won't fit or will fit, it's hard to figure out how to say it may not fit by adding, but it might fit within your existing house. So, yes, every lot per the law is allowed 2 ADUs, up to 2 ADUs under the regulation, but that doesn't mean every lot would be able to build 2 new ADUs up to 1,000 square feet, because it wouldn't be able to meet the setbacks, and they would still have to meet the setbacks.
Well, they could stack and do it that way, couldn't they?
Still have to meet our height regulations, though.
Okay. And this really is presumed to be happening in what was single-family home zoning areas, correct?
And that's where the definition of ADU still is on single-family or middle housing, not on multifamily.
And then how would if we were to allow additional ADUs based upon square footage increments, how would that sort of play out? That seems to make some sense to me at least, but.
We would take your direction and write a code as such, and properties that would fit it would be allowed. You know, we would run into different, you know, as I mentioned, it would, my recommendation would be to look at it more with the middle housing requirements than ADUs, because we would have, it's already kind of an unusual situation where you are allowed more units under the ADU requirement and less units under the middle housing unit. So it's kind of a confusing thing. And so allowing more ADUs and still less middle housing. But however the council directs us is how we'll write the code. But yes, any way the council proposes, we'll prepare. And if a person can fit it and meet the site plan and meet all of our requirements through setbacks and size, you know, we kind of do a checklist. Do you meet your setbacks? Do you meet the requirements? You know?
I guess what I'm trying to get at is, you know, with the exception of Councilmember Nutting, none of us have any building experience. And
5 of you.
well, that's true. I'm sorry. I forgot.
That's
Yes.
okay.
Our mayor
I'll forgive
does,
you someday for a price.
our mayor does. But my point being that if we were to do it based upon square footage of the lot, you know, anything over 2, you'd need some additional square footage. I have no idea what that additional square footage optimally would be. Perhaps Mayor Buxton could enlighten us, or.
Well, they already have a square footage definition of an ADU.
No, but it's the lot size that dictates how many ADUs under one of these
And
possibilities.
I gave a sample of what I thought was probably reasonable, that would allow for, that size would allow for an ADU and a parking space. So,
Okay, so that, I mean, that's just one of the things that kind of jumped out to me. I don't know. So, and you're looking for us for direction.
Yes.
And I'm not sure I could provide it. Then the size of the ADUs, you know, lots of options, and I'm not sure what the advantage would, or disadvantages would be in how to give you that feedback. Can you enlighten us a little bit?
The advantages and disadvantages, I mean, the difference is what you want to consider an accessory unit versus a full unit. Again, as I mentioned at the last meeting, the bigger you get, you're differentiating between what do you want to consider a unit and missing middle. As soon as you start considering accessory dwelling units, we're dealing with less impact fees, less requirements, and less things that we can require to get future improvements, more restrictions on what we can require, where if it's just another unit, you know, we have more control over what we can regulate. So the higher you put that square footage, is it just another unit versus an actual accessory to the main unit? That's the only pro and con that I can see. So it's really, again, up to council.
And then one last question. Does this assume attached or detached or either?
Under the code, it is either.
Thank you.
Councilmember Grace Matsui and then Councilmember Harris.
Thank you so much for bringing back some suggestions for us to consider. I can see that there are already cities in the state that have varying different codes that apply to accessory dwellings already that we can learn some information from. I can think of a couple of reasons why I'd rather live in a 1,200 square foot accessory ADU than a 1,000 square foot. And I think about the impact that we can have on density, the amount of building that we can bring into the city, the increased walkability if we have folks who are living on bus lines, near major transit spots. But I think of, who is it that we're trying to accommodate here? Are you trying to accommodate the 18-year-old, 19-year-old who hasn't quite left the nest yet, who could move in right across the lawn? Are you talking about your mom who maybe is living in another state and is really far away from you and is now aging and you want somewhere close, but independent is someone who could move right into an accessory dwelling on your property? And I can think of an investment of just a rental. I have a double lot at my house, and one of them is kind of an odd shape and kind of small, but I think that it could fit one accessory dwelling, and I could open it up to a renter, or even someone like a flight attendant or a pilot who only wanted to stay there a couple times a month. And so having the variance of being 350 square feet, which is kind of like a closet size, that's small. That's like micro unit. Up to something substantial like 1,200 square feet, which could accommodate a couple, I think is exciting. And it gives that option for the builder, the homeowner, to go, what is appropriate and can go in at this spot? I very much like that it's could be tied to the residential zoning. If you have a 1,500 square feet, 15,000 square feet, that's a ton. That's, I mean, is that like half an acre?
Almost, but.
Oh, it's close. It's close. It's close. So one accessory dwelling or two on at least on half an acre, you may not even run into that person walking out to get coffee in the morning. I mean, it could be private away from you if you had a lot size that big. So I appreciate having those options. I think it gives maximum flexibility to the builders, to the owners. And I think it would increase the desirability if you want to move mom in next door, or maybe a kid that you want to move out of your house.
34.3% of an acre.
Oh, I'm sorry, not even half. It's more of a third. Thank you, I appreciate that.
I was thinking quarter acre.
Okay, we were all rough. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Google.
I appreciate it. I do want to go back to the parking stall, and I know that we can consider multiple configurations here. But I think in terms of encouraging development, a parking stall is basically $12,000 worth of concrete. That's what you have to buy. And we have a robust conversation in this state about reducing parking stall requirements with multi-unit dwellings. Because we know from research that people who want to live in dense areas may not need a parking stall. They might primarily commute by bicycle. They might primarily commute by our new light rail. And so why are we building things that many people actually do not want or do not need? And we're trying to reduce the carbon footprint of this area. It means cutting down trees, cutting down lawn and greenery when you add 2 parking stalls to your property. And so I love having these options. I hope that there's something that we can consider to give maximum flexibility. This means that you can put in 2 parking stalls if you want to, but if you don't make it a requirement, you can put in 0. Give the option to the builder. Thank you.
Councilmember Mahoney? Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Harris, go ahead. No, okay.
Well, let's start with the parking, because it's just coming off of that. I think of the Adriana, where they were supposed to have another layer of parking originally, and obviously before your time, Tim might remember this, but it was decided, they voted, they basically came in and said that it was senior living, low income, subsidized, all that kind of thing, and that 80% of the residents wouldn't have cars, and then what it turned out to be was 80% of them had them and 20% didn't. So now what we have is a lot of street parking around there. I think it's a deterrent from the rentals at the retail there, amongst some other things. So I have an issue with not having parking. The other one being, it would be in residential. There's a lot of street maintenance, particularly street cleaning and so forth. And I could see that being problematic. I do agree with her that we don't want deterrents. I would say, is there maybe, if they do 2, they at least have 1 spot or something like that as a requirement? So that was my first call out. I had a couple of questions two that I didn't see in here. So obviously, they mentioned that they could be sold. When you do this ADU approval, do you divide the lot lines and make it 3 different lots? So even though it might be under one ownership now, it can be quickly sold and so forth? Is that the way it works?
Right now, well, so right now, under the ADU regulation, they can go under a condo map, so you don't technically split the lot, you do it under a condo map. There are some new possible legislations that are doing different kinds of other lot splitting that could change it through unit lot subdivisions that would still create kind of a master lot and possibly allow ADUs to be separate lots. But we don't know where some of that legislation might go. But right now, the unit can be owned separately, but it wouldn't be a technically separate lot.
Okay, so I assume probably contractually, property taxes and some of those other things.
Just like a condominium ownership.
Yeah, would get there figured out without probably a condo association, maybe.
You would end up with a semi-condo association.
Yeah, of some sort.
2 owners or 1 owner, yeah.
Okay, obviously, the other thing I'm concerned about is utility capacity, and I didn't see anything mentioned here. So you got a street and 5 people of the, say, 20 houses on the block decide to do this, and now it's a burden and the utility cannot support it. How does that go? What do they do there?
We did have a meeting when we started talking about missing middle in general, and most of our utilities didn't seem to have too many concerns about meeting our needs generally. So we don't see a big concern. They understood that the ADU regulations and missing middle are coming. Anytime we build units, there is a concurrency discussion. So everyone does have to have the need met before we can put new units in. So as it comes, we do deal with the utilities and make sure that they're able to be served before units are built. But from the last discussion we had at our missing middle with all the utilities, everyone said we should be able to generally serve the expected capacities that are coming.
Okay, and so say like sewer, right? Somebody's connected to the sewer, and the utility determines that the current building on it is maxed out on that particular sewer line. Of course, they'd probably have to have some kind of requirements for them to pay a fee to join, to create a separate sewer line to the main, or something along those lines.
They'll have their own policy, whether they need a separate line or whether they can connect to the same line.
And then in your permitting process, you just check the box that they have a permit and approval from them. Is that correct? Okay, that's what I had. Thank you.
Councilmember Oxiger. Oh, and then Councilmember Nutting after that.
Okay, so you've answered the question with regard to sewer, but what about septic? Are there going to be, what are the requirements as far as drain fields and all of that? Is this going to constrict the number of units that can be on?
It can. From my experience, I haven't had any experience here, but from my experience dealing with this in my previous city, it can definitely affect whether someone can get a unit. It just depends on the system that they have and whether it can hold the capacity, especially if they're, again, sometimes if they're doing it out of their existing house. So sometimes when they're converting an existing building, it's fine. So, just like people can remodel and add bathrooms, if the septic system can handle it, they can do that remodel and add a bathroom. That's a lot of times why this legislation with ADUs is built, because they want to force different utilities and cities to treat ADUs the same as the house. So it sometimes is really dependent on the exact situation and the exact type of septic system they have and what the capacity of that septic system is, and the situation on the ground for that septic system, whether it can be replaced, whether it can't be replaced. So it's hard to know exactly what the situation is for that specific property.
Okay, we have large areas of North Hill are on septic. Has there been any contact with, it would be Southwest Suburban and also Midway? Yeah, way up there. Has there been any contact with them as to, what their prospects are as ability to have sewer service available. And, because I just see it as, you know, where I can imagine people saying, we don't want the density in the neighborhood, so therefore we're not gonna get on sewers.
We haven't had specific discussions about expanding sewer related to this.
But has there been any contact with the utilities?
Again, we had contact with the utilities over, again, we had the missing middle meeting and had just general discussions about capacities and the density coming in the state requirements. Again, that specific discussion did not come up, but we did note where areas did not have sewer.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Hey, most of my questions have been answered. I'm looking at square footages and stuff, and I mean, as long as we're meeting our setbacks that are required, the chances of putting any ADU on I live on a 5,000 square foot lot, and getting maybe 350 square feet following the setbacks is almost impossible. Requiring a one stall parking, most of the parking is on street, on city right away, and I mean, everything that's in red has been denoted as HB 1337 requirements to pass. And if they're updating their house, there's so much that you have to go through if you're on a septic through the health department. When most of the North Hill, built in the 50s and the 60s, were calculated on fixtures and could not sustain an extra bathroom. The unfortunate thing, this just allows more people to do unregulated or undocumented ADUs. But as far as I'm concerned, we're required by the state to adopt this, and I think we've done a great job of limiting our exposure. So those are my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you. Let's see here. You mentioned last time, basically 1337, you could perhaps have a more simplified code that just allowed for 4 units, rather than, you know, having separate sections or.
So yeah, one of my proposals when you guys were talking about more units was to kind of combine, in a sense, ADU and middle housing. The middle housing code has 2 different requirements: 2 units per lot in certain areas, and then 4 units per lot in the major transit. And then the ADU has, in a sense, 3 units with the minimum under the bill. If we just allowed 4 units per lot everywhere, you could be under either ADUs or through the middle housing is one way to do it. And we would kind of mesh those codes together a little bit. And you would be allowed 4 units everywhere. It would simplify it across the board is one way to do it. We would still want what you guys consider ADUs at 1,200 square feet, if that's a consensus here. We could say up to, still have our minimum, maximum on ADUs, and then it would be 4 units per lot, whether it's an ADU or middle housing, is one way. We still would want to know parking for ADUs, maybe 1 parking spot for the first unit, and maybe an exemption on the second possible, or not at all required for the second unit and third, however you guys, again, those are the kinds of things. But yes, my suggestion that we discussed last time was to do, if you guys wanted to allow more units across the board, which is what I was hearing, was to go possibly 4 units under the middle housing requirement too, and allow ADUs as part of the middle housing as well.
Okay, you're being remarkably cheerful, and I appreciate that. but I am thinking about administrative burden,
Yes.
and also the building guy, and having 42,000 paragraphs and so forth, and unless you're an experienced builder or an attorney or something like that, making compliance challenging.
And that's why my suggestion, if we did just 4 units across the board, it would be simpler, because
So-
we'd kind of be able to combine the codes a little bit.
So that's kind of my overarching kind of a thing. You've done, stellar work. It would be lovely if we had some kind of just idea of how many homes might be eligible for different types of things. Because Councilmember Nutting's point is very well taken. I've had like 3-4 community meetings in North Hill, and every year or so, there's a group that gets together that is like, we want to get off septic, okay? And they have like a little community meeting, and they give me a map of who's on septic and who's not. And then it turns out that it's somewhere between a fortune and a mint, and then it evaporates, but they're all getting to end of life, and somehow there needs to be some kind of encouragement, or I don't know how, basically to, as people age out and you have this transition, I mean, it would seem to be, I'm just nervous about people continuing with septic at these older types of systems. I don't know, that's probably going into, so the other thing is, I guess, regarding parking, I mean, I guess just so much of this to me just seems like it should be up to, just an administrative decision, that essentially we should have as much flexibility as possible, but again, the simplicity for the building official and just, for example, because I can see us at some point having some kind of parking permits or something like that to handle, that on-street stuff. I guess that's my, is there any follow-up information on this notion of going condo? I mean, you could literally have a 1 condo unit on your, I'm just trying to wrap my mind around the legality of that.
Yes, you could have, if you have 1 ADU, you could have 1 condo on your lot, or 2 condos if you had 2 ADUs.
And again, I would welcome any kind of recommendation, because every option you provide like this, I just see an opportunity for conflict. Or maybe not, I don't know, but
I'm curious to see in practicality how it ends up, in terms of the condominiumization, but it's the law. We don't have a really way around it, and how we've talked to the utilities and their concerns. Obviously, the utilities do have concerns as we start to deal with mapping out, as the maps happen, when an ADU is built under a single ownership and then it gets mapped and sold separately, because there are different requirements and there are concerns when the unit's built one way because they assume it's going to be on a single lot and just rented, and then it gets sold as a separate ownership because of the way utilities get shut off, or could not be built as a separate utility and connected to the primary unit. And so they do have concerns under that, but as long as they're notified when it starts to be mapped, then they can put in the proper notifications and make sure that the proper requirements are done. Then they're less concerned.
Okay, my last thing is just, 1,200 square feet is pretty big, and this 1,000 square foot house just sold near me for over $550,000. So, can you then, if you have the larger ADU, are you then free to subdivide it into, like an amoeba, have it, turn into 2 ADUs?
You could technically subdivide if you met minimum lot size. I guess technically if you had a main unit and you built an ADU, and then in the zone you could, and you met minimum widths and minimum lot sizes, You could technically then go through the process to turn that into a main unit and then have more ADUs if you had.
I don't think he's talking about subdivision as in land. You're talking about dividing the building up into 2 units, into making it into a duplex.
Into an apartment,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's what he's
Because
talking
like, I'm just thinking that we have a resident who, it's been surprisingly challenging if you have, let's say, a 2-unit apartment or a 3-unit, and then you realize that it's tougher than you thought to rent out, the larger unit, and you want to turn it into a 4-plex, and so, how do you make it, if you find out that just your income is easier to accomplish with smaller units?
So yes, if we allowed 4 units across the board in middle housing, you could turn an ADU into a duplex, because we would be allowing duplexes under middle housing. So that would be possible if you weren't over your total number of units on the lot.
Okay, and just.
So it just depends on the
No,
total.
because I actually did that. I mean, I've had a 2-unit thing, and
So it all just depended on the situation under building code. It would all depend on the number of units on the lot. It would all depend on the number of units allowed by the council.
well, whatever, I'm just done here, but whatever has the least administrative burden would, and would get my vote. Thank you.
Councilmember Grace Matsui.
One of the suggestions and possibilities around ADU, and speaking to that administrative burden, is having that opportunity of having a pre-approved, permitted, you buy this like either prefab or you have a set of plans that has already been officiated, made official, and so folks can say, I want one of those, and you can say, yes, rapidly, we've been approved because it's one of our model ADUs. And so that's something that could make it easier for the builder, make it easier for you administratively if in the future we were to go through either a prefab or here's a pre-approved, permitted ADU that you can just choose from and go, yes, I want to order one of these guys. So that in the future could reduce that administrative burden and hopefully make that permitting process a little bit easier for that folks coming forward wanting to add additional housing into their unit or their land.
That is correct. So that is something that can be discussed through either budget process on what those costs would be. I have talked to a few other directors in the past about what they've gone through. I have heard that it hasn't been quite as popular as they had hoped, and so the expense that the cities have spent has not quite been the return on investment that they had hoped for. I have started looking at some manufactured units so that there wouldn't be quite the cost to the city because they'd already meet all of the requirements. So we're looking into different options so that we can bring something back to council to give you guys an idea of what exactly it costs some other cities to put together, because you would also have to update it every time there'd be a new round of building codes. And so what would the initial cost be, and then what would the code update kind of be every time we would have to do it, so you guys had an understanding of the cost, also get an understanding of how many times it actually got someone picked that requirement, so that, oh, is it only 5 that got chosen a year and we spent $200,000 to, for someone to get 5 pulled, And so we're looking into that so that we could bring that back to you in the future so that you understood what those kinds of what that options are.
Thank you. I have a couple more. One, I would say, I want to address the parking. I understand that this is an issue. I've had conversations about increased off-street parking if we eliminate or reduce the amount of off-street parking on the lot itself, and then people have to move to on-street parking. And again, I think that this could be that key to a more walkable city, that transit does follow where more density occurs. When you have more folks who need to get place to place, then hopefully more options for transit will come in and solve some of those needs as well. And I would also say that growth pays for growth. So when you go and get a feasibility study about adding a new sewer or adding a new water connection, the utility is going to tell you this is how much it costs to join, and these are the rates that we've set. It's kind of like a cooperative system that you have to go in and say, hey, is the service available here and how much does it cost? And that initial startup fee to join that system should pay for whatever connection that you have to that utility, which is another reason why reducing the amount of cement that you have to buy could go towards something like hooking up to the sewer system instead. Why should I spend $10,000 putting in a parking pad when it's going to cost many thousands of dollars to hook up to a sewer system? Many thousands of dollars. And so really reducing that building tax in the form of just a parking pad, I think is a win for anyone who's interested in expanding these sorts of options. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz and then Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, your initial question is some direction. So, in listening to all the conversation, I'm kind of coming to the conclusion that the idea of one parking per ADU is not that feasible. It's burdensome. It's going to take, it's, as Councilmember Grace Matsui said, it's, what did you say, $3,000 worth of some concrete or something like that, that isn't lawn, that isn't garden, that isn't something else. So, I would be more inclined to, a 0.5 per ADU or something like Edmonds did, which is exempt for the first one. So if mom wants to move in and you want to build an ADU for mom, she doesn't need a parking space. But if you're going to build the second place for Junior to try to get him out of the house, Junior probably has a car, or at least wants one. And so maybe that would be, the second one would require a stall. Something along, sort of a compromise. I'm also very much leaning towards the idea of, if we're going to go over 1,000 feet, it needs to be related to the lot size. Even though the setbacks will have some an interplay to limit that, but certainly if we're going to go up to 1,200 feet, which is pretty big. I mean, that's bigger than most apartments I lived in college, and even afterwards when I moved to Los Angeles, and space is always at a premium there.
Bigger than mine.
But also in Seattle, 1,200 feet is pretty good size. So you ought to have a bigger lot if you're going to accommodate that. At least this is where I'm leaning. And then, it probably does make sense in the number of ADUs to increase that based upon, a square footage requirement as well. We can, I don't think a flat 4 ADUs, you figure it out, really is terribly workable, and actually it ends up being a bigger administrative burden as somebody's trying to shoehorn this in and shoehorn that in, whereas if you just say, the standard lot, whatever that might be, everybody can get 2 if you can figure out how to fit them, but if you want to go to 3, you need to have this much more square footage. How much more square footage that would be, I would defer to you. But those are the directions I think that I would give you in writing these. Thank you.
Thank you. So what I'd like to do now is address, there's, I think, 5 questions in here. Isn't that true? There's 2 at the end that were basically umbrella questions that you gave us last week. So what I'd like to do is address each question to make sure that you have the direction that you wanted to get out of the question. And then if, as any of you have further input, if you could give your input at that question that applies to your input. Okay, go ahead. I'm going to call on you.
I have a question regarding the pre-approved thing. Regarding manufactured housing, is there a national standards kind of a thing that, in other words, I've looked at the pre-permitted approach, and it seems like every city has sort of concocts its own kind of a thing. And I'm struck by how manufactured housing hasn't really taken hold here as much as it just looks really good. So I'm just wondering, is it something that every city has to evaluate each manufacturer? Or is there some like seal of approval that every manufacturer adheres to that gives you comfort that they're going to be okay? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, there's kind of a seal of approval as long as they meet like our snow load, and so there's certain standards each city has. So, so yes, there's a seal of approval, a general seal of approval, and then there's certain standards each city also has.
Yeah, I'm pulling this
That
out,
makes
but
sense.
like with accounting, there's FASB and
Yes.
GAAP, and so is there a national standards thing for that each manufacturer?
There's going to be a state standard, not national. So there's going to be a state standard. So like if you go to like when I was searching, because I started kind of looking in preparation for this meeting, so I went to one manufacturer and it said, we can go in these counties. And so it knew that these counties had been approved, and then it said it was more expensive to be in these counties, and then it said, and then you need to pay more to look at these different snow loads. So it had a base price, knowing that these counties, that it met the standards for these different counties, and then you would have to look at, if you wanted to come to King County and look at the different snow loads for the different roof materials and different EVE requirements. So it's a little of a mix.
You're doing this.
I know, because it's a
Wasn't
little
the
bit of a
answer that
mix.
I was hoping for.
So yeah, so it's not just a straight standard, but there's a base standard, and then there's upgrade standards that you're gonna have to meet for different requirements at different city levels.
Darn, thank you so much.
Okay, so your first question is, increasing the number of ADUs, is that an option? And meaning increasing it above the minimum, is this your question, increasing above the minimum? So if you've got, the recommended was, if you've got a larger lot than RS 7200, can you add an additional for every 3,000 feet? Okay, so do we have a decent answer? Do we feel like we would like to, Councilmember Nutting?
Thank you, Mayor. And because I'm remote, I'm just going to make a blanket statement here. I'm fine with approving all of the requirements that we have to approve per the House bill. But I'm not. I don't think adding additional ADUs for that, and yeah, I guess that's I approve what's being required of us.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else feel that it would be helpful to add, to be able to add additional ADUs to your lot if you have a large lot? Raise your hand if you feel like you would like to visit that. Okay, you have a question? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, was there a chart on this, or what was the, for additional?
This chart right here, I believe.
Oh, that's not number of units, is it?
No, it's just size, yeah, you're right.
So what was the recommendation, that there could be two, and then you needed a lot larger than what?
Well, I think the question right now is, do we want to visit that? Because if we don't, they don't have to do any extra work. But if we would like to visit additional ADUs for larger lots, they can do that for us.
We can put a proposal together.
Put a proposal for more than 3 ADUs on a residential lot. Well, excuse me, 3 units, meaning 1 primary unit and 2 ADUs. Yes, Councilmember. Excuse me, Deputy Mayor.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. But my understanding is you have the primary unit and 2 ADUs.
Correct.
That's what's required by law.
Correct.
To allow a third ADU
Yes.
is what we're actually discussing, whether that should be based on lot
Right.
size or just allowed.
Correct. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, it was not clear.
Right, is there a consensus that you want staff to come back with a proposal for more than 2 ADUs? I guess is the first question.
So anybody who would like that, raise their hand.
So then I guess the second consensus is, do you want it based on lot size or just outright allowed?
Well, I have a question
Yes.
about this specific. You know, the number of units, I'm thinking in terms of just connections and, you know, depending on the geometry of your property, it might be you know, even if you have the right, even if you have enough land, how they're laid out matters.
Well, that would be something separate. They're just going to come back to
Okay,
us with
okay,
a proposal. We're just trying to
All right.
get the answers.
I'm just, that will make a difference in the code you,
That will always make a
course.
difference, because you'll still have to meet setbacks, and you'll still have to, so if that's, so that, in that case, you would more be just concerned with the overall number, because you'll always still have to meet setbacks, you'll always still have to meet requirements. And in that case, you would only be worried about the overall number. But if you want it to be tied to size as well, then we would go with that.
Okay, Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. My concern here is where, I'm sorry, I'm trying to compose my question. Where do the setbacks end? So let's just say that, okay, you can meet the backyard setbacks, which most of these ADUs will be built in the backyard. And you can meet the side yard setbacks, but you can't meet the setbacks between each additional ADU in the back of the house, or the existing property or existing house. What jurisdiction do we have over that, and how do we have anything in code that requires additional setbacks between the house, the ADUs in the backyard?
If you detach them, then we do have setbacks between structures, but the legislation allows you to attach them. So if you don't have the space, you can just require it as an attached ADU.
Okay, I guess this is my comment. I have talked to several people in the North Hill area that are very much against this, and so I other than what's required by the HB 1337, I'm not in favor of any of this.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. So the next question is, could utilities,
I wouldn't worry about that for council. That was just a.
yeah, okay, so, yeah, I was going to try and say, what did you want out of that question? Okay, so the next question is increasing the maximum size an option? So are you asking that of us?
I think we still need to ask on the number of units. Did you want it tied to size?
Excuse me. Oh, tied to lot size is what you're saying? Excuse me, thank you.
I do.
Tied to lot size, I support that as well. Okay, it looks like you've got support, tied to lot size. Okay? Were those the questions on this page?
Size.
Okay, so the next page,
Number of units.
your question is increasing the maximum size an option?
So do you guys want to increase the size of ADUs over 1,000 square feet?
Do you have a question? Or is that your vote?
Looking for consensus.
I'm in favor. If it's suitable, I'm in favor. Are you in favor?
My comment was, is you kind of had this option, whereas the lot size got bigger, then I thought this was a good recommendation. If it's RS 8,400 or under, you kept it at 1,000, and then when it got to the 9,600 and beyond, then the option to make bigger ADUs. I thought that was a reasonable suggestion.
Would you like it tied to the zone specifically, or again, tied to the lot size? Because you could have you could be in a smaller zone and have a larger lot.
My question is what's your recommendation on that? I mean, if it's coded this way and it makes it easier, then I think it's fine.
Zoning is a good way to do it. That way, if it further subdivides in the future, you've still got smaller units because of the minimum lot size is smaller. So zoning is a good way and practical way that makes sense.
So that's your answer, I would say.
It's still up to you.
By the zoning, anything over RS 9600.
Okay, Councilmember Nutting.
I'm all for lot size and zoning. I absolutely think that we should stick to what our codes are on subdividing lots, and not being able to sell. I don't know. I'm very conflicted with this. I understand what is needed, but the reality of it is developers are going to get the money they need to do this kind of stuff, and this gives them an avenue to skirt the details. And I'm sorry, I can't. I think that I don't think that selling the property and turning it into a condo situation is the right way to go.
I think we're required to do it, though, right? We don't really have an option, Councilmember Nutting. I think we have to do it. Councilmember Harris, so.
Well, to me, the setbacks, again, the geometry is going to take care of itself. And so I don't, unless somebody can give me a use case, I think that's that might be unnecessary.
Are you still addressing, is the increasing the maximum size an option? Are you still addressing that question?
Yeah, she referred to using zoning to help determine the number of units and the size.
Of the
size.
Maximum.
And again, I just think that the geometry is going to take care of a lot of this stuff as a practical matter.
Correct.
So
In the majority of cases, that's correct.
So I'm just seeing that as maybe a bit unnecessary. I don't know. Maybe.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Grace Matsui.
I just wanted to comment, if that's okay.
Sure, that's what this is for.
I'm a little more in favor of linking it to lot size rather than zoning, because zoning is not always connected to your lot size. My block is a really good example of that, where I have like one 7,200, one like 3,000, and then one 15,000 square. It doesn't make any sense, the three lots that are right next to each other. And I agree, yeah, the setbacks will impact every single one of these decisions, so we're looking for some guidance over the entire system. So I'm a little more in favor of lot size than zoning, but I'm willing to go with the majority's feeling on that.
Okay, are we, so the question, I'm just going to ask you this, is increasing the maximum size according to lot size. If that's your favorite, raise your right hand.
Lot size or zoning?
According to lot size, instead of the zoning.
Looks like we've got majority.
Okay.
Is 1,200 what we're looking at?
Well, you've got a 1,500 square foot max option here in this list. So are you asking us now for a maximum?
Yes.
So there's three options. 1,000. Increasing is the only two options you have here is 12 or 15, correct?
Correct.
Okay, everybody in favor of 1,200 as your max, raise your right hand. Everybody in favor of 15, that was 4. Okay, so 1,200, got 4 votes. Okay. I am ready to move to the next question, if you all are. All right. The next question they asked is there flexibility with the parking requirement? So there was a lot of different opinions on parking. So those who, how many of us would like to have some flexibility with the parking? Raise your right hand. We have a majority that want to be flexible. So now what you're asking for is what does that look like? Okay, and so there are a gajillion possible equations, right?
Yes. I heard one of the solutions was not require it on the first one, but require it on everyone after. How do we like that?
I like that. I think that's
I
simple.
heard 3.
Okay.
How about requiring it on the first one and not after that?
No.
No? Okay.
Okay, so we didn't get a majority on either of those two, so
I have a question.
go ahead.
Okay, so in the city of Seattle, my son lives in an area where they have these permit parking things. Can you, and they are remarkably effective in a lot of domains, I'll just put it that way. Can you perceive the city, is that something the city would be, as an option, just,
Where you have to get a permit to park on the public street.
Well, you pay for a sticker.
That's a whole program that I would not be able to agree to myself. That
Okay,
would
no, I'm just saying it as
beyond
a
my-
possibility, has that been something you've just, I'm just trying to think of that as a solution for,
No, but I could see us saying that you possibly would not need it for the first one, would need it for after, but you could apply for a administrative exemption if you have the space in front of your lot,
Oh, well, that sounds like a,
or something to that effect. That way,
okay, I'm going to call on Councilmember Nutting, then
don't
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, and then Councilmember Grace Matsui. Go ahead, Councilmember.
My only comments on that is you pay for enforcement, and how are you going to enforcement? We just cut and freezed several positions in the police department. So how are you going to pay for enforcement through the entire 7 miles long, 1 mile wide of the city that you're going to have to enforce some parking rules where you got a sticker on? It's not feasible. Doesn't make sense.
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, and then Councilmember Grace Matsui.
I have some real similar concerns about the permit parking. It does not work that well. It creates a secondary market for those stickers. Once you move out, you can sell it to somebody. You've got to have somebody at the department who can issue the sticker. That takes some administrative time. You've got to have police officers go around actually writing tickets or hiring enforcement people. This is not something within our current capabilities, nor is it an expansion that we can really afford to fund in the future. I do find the suggestion of what Ms. Deming just said about seeking exemptions over that first one, that might make some sense.
Okay, Councilmember Grace Matsui.
The only thing I would add to the conversation is perhaps conversions or attached could also be an exception, because if you already have a converted garage, or if you would like to use part of the house as an ADU, you may already have the parking available. And so one that's detached, go ahead and do 0 for number 1, requirement for number 2. We'll see how that goes. But I think if you're converting an existing garage or an attached dwelling, it just may not even be necessary.
I think you're allowed to assign your existing driveway as your parking space.
Right.
There's nothing that says that doesn't count towards
okay.
your parking, that you don't have to put new parking. You're allowed to say your driveway is your space. So those are part of allowed.
Great,
So-
thank you.
Right, any other comments on that? So, no, so let me reiterate, looks like the direction here is, you said 0 requirements for the first one and 1 for everyone, for the next one after that. And then at what limit do you get you seek an administrative exemption at some point? So if you could just bring that back, it sounds like that is satisfactory. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, okay, so if you get an administrative exemption, how does that play out in terms of law enforcement? I mean,
You would just get an exemption based on your
It
curb
says permitting.
frontage.
It's for
As long as there's enough space, as long as you have a wide enough street that you can park on your curb, and you have enough curb space to fit the number of cars based on the number of units you have, then you would get the exemption. And that would be as simple as that. You wouldn't get more exemptions than you have enough space to park cars in front of your street. There's no enforcement, there's no anything like that. There's just, as long as you have space to park a car.
They're just gonna give you a permit. It doesn't have to do with.
It's not a permit,
enforcement
you just
later.
get
It's
the
just a
unit.
permit to build.
Yeah, permit to build.
okay,
We can't guarantee you're going to park on your curb in front of your house. It just, that's how we establish that you got the exemption from not paving a space on your property.
thank you.
I'm going to call on Councilmember Nutting again, and then Councilmember Oxiger.
I'm sorry. I just cannot get on board with parking on the curb as a space. We are challenged with our parking in downtown, and we've continuously given businesses exemptions for parking, and now we're gonna start giving exemptions for residential neighborhoods to allow them to start parking on the streets. Living on North Hill, the public right of way is already packed of cars, and downtown's already packed of cars with people parking on the streets and circling the block and parking in other parking lots. I can't get on board with this. There is absolutely no way that we can do this and allow people to start parking in the public right of way and giving them a space based on an ADU. I'm sorry.
Okay, Councilmember Oxiger.
Yes, thank you. I have a similar concern because, knowing people in Seattle that, you have people that insist that that space in front of their house is theirs. And of course, under the commons, it is not. But this is like a giant headache trying to accommodate this. But then also on a street, at what point do you hit a maximum that there are simply not enough parking spaces on that street to accommodate the number of ADUs you've got?
It's just their frontage. And again, if most people, if they can't figure out that there's enough room on their space, they're gonna put their own parking spot, because if you can't park on your street, are you gonna be able to live in your unit and drive a car? I mean, again, the people still have an option to put a parking spot if they want it. This isn't, we're not telling them they can't put a parking spot. There's still, it's just an option that they don't have to.
Okay, well, the other thing too is that this, of course, is increasing density, in which case we would want to increase access to public transit. And there's an area in the Parkside area that I swear to God, they've got like 4-block long streets, and you could not get a bus going down that street. It's the main access to Parkside Elementary. You could not get a bus going down there and have another car coming the other direction, because everybody now is parking on the streets. So how do we accommodate, okay, if we're gonna increase the density and to the offset therefore is to increase public transit, how are we going to accommodate space in order to get public transit down that street? It's like we're clogging up our arteries.
So, I have a couple of answers, but I'm not calling on myself yet. Councilmember Harris. And then Councilmember Nutting.
So I try very hard not to correct other people, but, I have years of lived experience with Seattle, and at some point, we will have to consider some form of parking permits. I'm sorry if, people are aghast at the moment, but it is the way to fund enforcement and to, establish some kind of order. But if today is not that day, fine, but, we're going to have to, we have these competing interests of wanting people to get out of their cars, but also just assuming that's the way the world is going to go. So that's the discussion.
Councilmember Nutting, and then Councilmember Nutting, and then myself.
All right, Mayor, thank you. Councilmember Harris, I don't disagree.
Not cross-talking, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I guess my point is with our adoption of our permeable surfaces and all the other stuff, that putting a parking spot in, it becomes infeasible for the people with the ADUs. And I'm in full support of a parking spot, but I don't know, conflicted there.
Thank you. So this is not a study session, and so I really have let the conversation almost turn into conversation instead of each person gets two cracks at before we take a vote here. So we've had a lot of discussion. What I'd like to do is ask, because there's a question here, is there flexibility? It sounds like there is flexibility. So I would like to ask that, if I can get some nods, that you come back with two options based on what you have heard tonight. And then we can choose from those or possibly augment those, but we are coming up with too many options. Do you feel like that's workable for you guys? Okay. Okay, now I gave that direction. Do I have some head nods though with that? We've got, okay, good. Okay, so the other questions were the umbrella questions from last time. So do you guys feel like you got your question answered and you have some direction from us?
We are good. Thank you.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right. So,
because we talked about HB 1337 so
Okay.
much, are you proposing to keep that half mile from transit thing? Or, I mean, I got from the discussion that we're omitting that.
We have to. Under the law, we have to exempt all parking. We cannot require any parking requirements if you're within half a mile of major transit.
Okay, but
So
your
we will have to
your
keep that in the
options,
code.
but your options, is one of your options going to afford that flexibility for the entire city, or you're just gonna limit it to those? Because
No, the additional parking requirements will be outside that half mile of transit.
okay, I'm just, yeah, I'm probably beating a dead horse, but, you know, we have several streets that used to have bus stops. They got, you know, they got waxed during COVID, and I live in hope of them coming back, and it would be nice to have that option, should that be the case.
Correct. Major transit has a very specific definition. If the transit stops get added that meet the definition of major transit, we would add it to the map, and those would become exempt as well. So we've added a GIS map, which is available currently on our GIS webpage, and you can turn on, because middle housing and ADUs have different, one is a half-mile requirement and the other is a quarter-mile requirement, so we have both buffers currently on the planning map. So you can turn on major transit for both requirements and see which you can see that buffer requirement of major transit. So if the major transit stop gets extended, that buffer, we would extend that buffer to wherever it needs to be, so that when an application comes in, we can look at the map and see if they're fully exempt from parking or whether it would meet whatever requirement gets adopted by the council.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
right. We good to move forward? Okay.
So that concludes our city manager's report. Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, well, the next item up is some unfinished business, and we're going to open with the subject of the Sixgill Shark Capital of the World. We talked about that, I think, last week. So the purpose of this item is to continue the discussion of signage on 6th Avenue in downtown Des Moines, as well as a partnership with the Mass Center for Stormwater Education. And I don't believe we have...
We don't have a presentation this evening, but we do have the pleasure of Tyler Beakley here, our swim manager, that's available for any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Tyler. So what I'm going to do is pass it for one moment to Councilmember Mahoney, because this was his presentation originally, so.
Thank you, Mayor. First question, did everybody get a chance? It came out at 3 o'clock today, Michael Slevin's email on the Sixgill Shark. A little bit further explanation.
Councilmember Nutting.
I'll try to summarize it. Basically, he talked about $10,000 and it would come from the Stormwater Fund. They allocate, I think it's approximately $60,000 a year to educate the public about clean water and so forth. So the funding would come out of there. Obviously, what would be done here is 2 education boards and also the proposed naming of the street. But he also mentioned the fact that a lot of this funding of this money would be making the Sixgill Shark sort of a mascot like he did in Tacoma, where they used the giant Pacific octopus to help educate particularly our children, but the residents in general, about the importance of clean water and so forth. So that's where the funding is. Now, I know that they did have discussions, and Russ, I'm probably going to bring you up to the pulpit there or whatever, pulpit or podium. It's been a long day, so yeah, give me that one. Yeah, you're not going to preach to us, are you? But from what I understand, you had some conversations too. Maybe you can elaborate on those, a potential fundraising or grant requests that you would do on your end too that might fill these coffers back up in the funding or something along those lines. I only got to briefly read it, but
Yeah.
maybe you can give us a little more information.
The more funding is still in a preliminary phase. What has happened so far, and if I'm digressing too much, please stop me, is there's been talks with potential partners, local dive shops, harbor master, potentially some local vendors and that sort of stuff. And so getting them involved, getting them signed in, would they be willing to sell stuff, right, that could raise some monies that way? The actual graphic that's going to be created in that, which we can share with the city at some point for approval, we actually talked with a marine educator, a graphic designer, and she's going to donate that as her time. That's multiple thousands of dollars of work. And so the actual costs, I mean, like the street signs, the majority cost is the design, not the signs. Same thing in this. And again, the design is going to be donated. So I've already got preliminary numbers with signage that I've been working towards. And for the two signs, we're, I think, significantly less than like 6,000, which is, I mean, again, preliminary. We still need to decide the parameters, how big and that sort of stuff, which could obviously change the numbers. But in other words, trying to reduce costs besides just raising money.
All right, thank you. So the intent is to have an education sign down at Redondo and then one at the marina. Although divers primarily access the Redondo entry to go in and see the sharks, they have been sighted at Saltwater State Park, and I personally sighted one just northwest of the pier, and they've been seen as far up as Three Tree Point and so forth. So the idea is, because we're the Sixgill capital of the world, we want to spread the education, the ability throughout the city. Also with SR3 down in the marina and so forth like that. We have the Mass Center located in the Redondo. The idea is to give 2 education boards. The other idea, and I think it's really fun and adds a little kind of element and a kind of specialty to the Marina District, was a proposal that we add the commemorative street signs there. And the discussion was, we talked about where that could go and so forth. Redondo's has the Mass Center, it has that kind of thing, but we have that 6th Avenue, and we thought, what a way to play on the 6 to do Sixgill Ave as a commemorative site. Now, I think it'd be neat, and I'm going to support it. I'm not going to be heartbroken if it doesn't, but I think it adds a uniqueness to the city. I think, as Mike talks in here, it would have our mascot on it. Of the Sixgill Shark. I think the kids would love it. I think our seniors in the community would love it. I think our Marina District members would love it. The ones I spoke to in the neighborhoods thought it was kind of a fun idea. I didn't really hear anybody thought. The only concern they had was, will it change our address? And I explained that it wouldn't because it's commemorative. So that's pretty much what I have. And I would ask Russ if you have anything to add before the rest of the discussion begins. I'll give you the floor.
On the street name, I would ask that it just be Sixgill Shark Ave, just because Sixgill without a shark, for those that don't know, doesn't mean anything. I realize that's longer.
And that's perfectly fine with me.
But that's a minor change. So the other thing, in terms of the other stuff, and is the July 6th celebration of that. We've been working towards some other things with, again, vendors and groups to be there. And so for those that remember the Christmas Ship Festival that they would have down there in the bonfire, I vaguely reminiscent of that combined with the farmer's market-esque kind of vibe, street fair sort of stuff. So there's been some conversations on those. Details still forthcoming. I'd be happy to share that as we get further along, and reaching out to the stakeholder groups that are involved, the Redondo community group, for example, that obviously would be directly affected by anything that goes down there, as well as the divers. And so we've got some information sessions planned on that.
Thank you. That's what I had, Mayor.
Okay, any questions before the motion? Councilmember Harris and then Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you. Do you see this as, when you say vendors and stuff, I mean, do you see this as a fundraising effort for the mast?
No, I do not. No, I do not. Any revenue that could be raised by this, in my mind, would go back towards developing education around that. So maybe that's further signage, maybe that's further programs around that. I don't see that as a revenue stream for the mast in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to get my, oh, okay.
I mean, I'd be happy to take a cut, but that.
No,
No, this.
No, I'm just trying to get my mind around.
So I'll give you an example of maybe a way that funding could be used in the future. We're also trying to work on a Sixgill Shark / scuba float in the Waterland Parade. There's obviously some cost involved in that. Maybe it supports those kinds of integration into other activities that the city's already doing.
Okay, no, thank you. My other question is essentially for the city, so that's all I got. Great.
Thank you.
Didn't somebody else raise their hand? Oh, Councilmember Nutting, did you raise your hand?
I did. I don't have a question. I just have comments. So I'll wait until after the motion. Mayor, thank you.
All right, any other questions before the motion?
I have a question for the
Okay.
City. Is this in the DPW's email? It sort of sounded like an ongoing kind of does the city have some kind of ongoing recommendation, or does the city consider this a one-time deal, or because he sent the video with the octopus? And I mean, I understand you've got an education requirement with NPDES this year, but are you already thinking about this as an ongoing kind of a deal, or is that too early to talk about?
Yeah, looking forward, definitely we could roll that and expand that, and as it catches on as quote-unquote a mascot for water quality of the Puget Sound for our local community, yeah. Of course we could expand that to all different programs. Right now, we're just looking for direction on if we want to partner on a sign and start there, and then, yeah, we'd look for further direction.
Okay, thank you, that's all I got.
My question, I might have asked it last week, but I'm forgetting the answer. Why July? It's very close to the 4th of July. I can see if this does grow in popularity, a competition for volunteer energy or city energy to be able to make something very notable happen.
I'm happy, whatever, Matt.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll come in if there's.
So, if I had my perfect date, to be honest, it'd be in June 6th, Sixgill sort of thing.
Okay.
But there's a lot of attention around sharks in July, and the big one is Shark Week. Literally starts July 6th.
What is that, like a national?
Shark Week, no, Shark Discovery Channel, Sharknado. There's massive international attention around Shark Week, and so there's a lot of things, and so I think there's some leverage that we could use that to help raise attention. July 14th is also Shark Awareness Day, and July is Shark Month. So these are things that already exist, and so we're dovetailing on that. I agree that 2 days after the 4th of July is not necessarily perfect, and with thinking of the stakeholders that are involved in a July 6th day, one is obviously the divers. And the diver, you know, if they've got a weekend off for the 4th of July, right, that's more likely to bring the divers out. And so in that sense, I think that's actually a positive. The other thing is with the community and getting the community involved, that's still you know, I think most of us know July 4th, or in my opinion, July 4th has become maybe a little more commercialized. And so this is more a little bit of a wholesome family, you know, go down to the beach sort of thing. And so it's, you know, like you talked about the 4th of July fireworks and going from the noise to the drones sort of idea, right? It's a different energy. And so being 2 days later, I don't see it as a huge competition. It's Redondo versus, you know, the marina area. And we looked at other days, and it just, the kind of the six fell together.
Okay.
No, we really tried to make it June 6th, but we couldn't figure out how it made sense with the tying with the international recognition of sharks. It just ties too well to what's happening not only in the U.S. but worldwide. There'll be a big focus in July on sharks in general, and we thought that was the best date to capture that momentum here.
Any other questions? Councilmember Oxiger.
Well, questions or a comment?
A question right now.
Okay, why do you think it's advantageous to do the street, the signage designation at this point? And the reason I ask this is that...
Are you going to make a point?
Go ahead.
Well, you know, there was I don't know, 12 or 13 of us that met initially. And this was an idea that came as a recommendation actually from Josh Gertzman from Highline College. The idea here is that a lot of the focus will typically be at Redondo because that's the most common dive access point. But we wanted to make it where it was more of a city thing, and we wanted to find a way that we could recognize that we are the Sixgill capital of the world. A sign like that's going to remind everybody, and it's in another part of town that also is included in, I mean, because we are along our 6-mile stretch, the waters of all of it contain this great creature. And so we thought it was a great, I mean, I'll just be honest with you, I like the idea, and I do think it'll bring recognition and questions inquisitiveness to what the Sixgill Shark is. It's a place where the name will be in something that would be kind of different and unusual. It's obviously my personal opinion, but I think it'll bring benefit because I think people will find it fun, and they'll find it informative, and they'll find it educational. But as far as if you want science of like what it's going to bring or benefit, I couldn't give that. It was just my general take, and it seemed to be consensus of the group. It was really well received as a suggestion when it came, and that's all I got for you.
All right, any other questions before I ask for a motion? Okay, do I have a motion? Councilmember Mahoney, go ahead.
I move to proceed with developing and installing commemorative signage declaring 6th Avenue, Sixgill Shark Avenue, and authorize the Surface Water Management Fund to partner with Mass with the educational signage and outreach related to the Sixgill Shark and the importance of water quality in an amount not to exceed $10,000.
Second for Councilmember Nutting. Okay, comments and discussion. Councilmember, Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, then Councilmember Nutting, and then Councilmember Oxiger. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a great, fun little idea. I think the commemorative signage includes a greater part of the city. It increases awareness in it. It doesn't just limit things to Redondo. And so I would really, it sounds like there are ways that we're going to be able to get to do this, and the signage is not the most expensive part of this by any means, and certainly can be met, particularly since we have the design already done. So I'm in favor of this. I think it's a good idea, and hopefully we'll create yet another reason for people to come to the town and be aware of us, and that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nutting. I can't hear you.
Thank you, Mayor. For one of those very it doesn't happen very often, but I actually have dove with one of these great creatures, and the fact of the matter that they don't know or understand so much about these creatures, and that we have them in our area constantly and constant sightings. I think this is a great opportunity to draw more business and people to the area. I think this is a great idea. Wonderful creatures, and it'll bring us some more business in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Oxiger.
Having been involved with at least 2 efforts to stand up a festival, commemorative recognition or something in the city, one being, I don't know how many people remember the Pet Festival, and then we also had the Arts Festival, not to be confused with the Arts Gala. The general rule on these things is that you usually need to go at least 3 times in order to figure out whether or not it's going to work. Okay, we're now talking about changing a street name or adding a commemorative street name on something we've never tried before. We haven't really gotten to this point there, to point where, you know, we have any kind of idea of whether this is going to have any kind of legs, yet we're renaming a street. I think it's premature at this time, and I would offer an amendment to strike the street designation from the proposal.
And where would you start the motion?
I'm sorry?
And so where would you start the motion?
I would move to proceed with, or to authorize Surface Water Management Fund to partner with the MAST for educational signage and outreach related to Sixgill Shark Week and the importance of water quality in an amount not to exceed 10,000.
So there's a motion to amend. Do I have a second? Second, Councilmember Grace Matsui. Any discussion on the amendment? Councilmember Grace Matsui, and then Councilmember Harris.
I actually like very much the idea of, we started with Big Festival, Shark Week, July, and moving towards having this become a mascot for surface water management is actually more appealing to me. Even though I think the Sound Starts Here already has a salmon on it, right? So that would mean that in the future we might need to move away from that mascot that we already have on those program signs and move to Gilly, the Sixgill Shark, who I've just named right now, which I think could go really well. I do have some hesitancy over spending public works money that's already in the budget that could go to something else. And so if that $5,000 could come from another source, I would be more amenable to supporting it. But at this time, I'm all for granting the up to $10,000 to partner with SWIM and MAST to do educational outreach and signage. But the commemorative sign, I would love to see find another source that's not funds that could be used towards general work that needs to happen in public works. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Harris.
I withdraw.
Straw. Okay. Any other comments there? I agree with Councilmember Oxiger and Councilmember Grace Matsui. First of all, I love the idea of partnering with Surface Water Management. I love the education component. I love Stormfest. I love Squidorama. So I think these things are great, and I am fully in support of the Surface Water Management portion of the motion. I just am very reticent to brand a street with something that we've never even tried yet. And because if something happens, it doesn't work out, the people who are heading it up, their energy dissipates for whatever reason, then we have a street So even if we find the money from somewhere else, even if it's free, we're still branding a street with something that we haven't proven. And I think we do have a hard time sometimes establishing some of these things. I mean, we've got Men in Black, we have different people trying to really gain some traction on events. So it's a lot of work. Yeah, I'm reticent to have a street sign until something's been proven. So I will be supporting the amendment. Councilmember Mahoney.
As I mentioned before, the education process, we've already dedicated the day of July 6th, and we've made this the Sixgill Capital World. And the education piece is, when Russ and I talked and Passionate and the divers, this is what we were most after. I do think it would be fun, but it's not the one that's going to get me in the way. I'll support this too. I've done the counting, and we're not going to get the sign right now anyway. I think all I would ask my colleagues to do is that, and I don't think this is going to be something like what Men in Black is and some of the other things. I think it's a little bit different, but I would ask that as this progresses and we see or get momentum, then please consider and entertain the idea down the road of something like this, because I think it could be fun. I think it'd be something that children enjoy. So I'll support the amended motion, no problem. I just, like I said, it was an idea, and it seemed to be the consensus of the group that rallied to do this, so I wanted to give it every chance it could. And it looks like it stops here for at least now.
Any other comments or thoughts on that? All right, so we have a motion, second discussion. All in favor of the amendment, raise your right hand. So Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, it looks like it's unanimous. So motion passes as amended.
Well, no, we voted on the amendment.
Well, we voted on the amendment. So
Do we need to withdraw?
do I need to?
I don't think so,
Yeah.
do we?
Well, no, now you need to vote on the.
Vote on, okay, so any discussion on the main motion before Councilmember Harris?
Yeah, I would like to postpone this till 2026. Ironically, I would fully support the sign, and the whole shebang, but getting an email from Mike at 3 p.m., it should never be the case that we make decisions on the fly like this. I think Mike's proposal is really, it's a good idea, but the fact is, these things take time to plan, and it would be better to take adequate time to plan it and make it successful than rather just, try to get something going and then maybe, see how that goes. And it's sort of a camel's nose under the tent, or however the expression goes. And I do not think it should be the case that the council ever considers anything, basically, anything after Friday is irritating to me. I want time to really think about it and talk to various stakeholders. I have real concerns about July the 6th, because if we're actually trying to make this place Destination Des Moines, you should spread out your events throughout the summer and try to figure out how to create a bigger lever for every event we do. And I think this is just something that it's too ad hoc. It's like, hey, it's a fun thing to do, and we have some swim money over here, so let's do it, guys. That's fine, but at a certain point, I keep coming back to the voters told us to try to show some more discipline. And if you really want people to visit and you want to provide education, it just takes more time to do this kind of thing well. And so I would just move to put this on next year's calendar.
Do I have a second for that?
Sure.
Do you have a second for that? Okay, there's a second. Discussion. Okay. Councilmember Grace Matsui, and then Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Typically, I would agree. I think that the difference here is that we did hear this presentation on March 13th, so it has been, 3 weeks. It hasn't been just today that we've been considering this. And we did ask that the city come back with some hard numbers and proposal, which they have done. And I keep saying the city, but it's actually we. We have come back with some proposals. I do have concern about having another festival in July. I think ideally this would be great in a timeline like November or some December or January, a time that you don't have a lot of activities that you want to attract more. So you put in a winter festival of some sort because you're going to get people in July. And having a third event in July is not super exciting to me. And I agree with some of the issues that Mayor Buxton enumerated, like fatigue of volunteers, putting a lot of city resources into 4th of July, which we did today, Waterland Parade, and then having the third event, I think is tough. And so, but I don't think we need to put it off as far as 2026. And so I wouldn't be voting to approve that, but I do still have things that I think we could work out. And there are still question marks in my mind. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, I think we're mixing up two different things. The July 6th date could be done by the community group in Mass Center and down in Redondo, irregardless of how we vote tonight. It doesn't matter. They can go do their thing, and they can have the festival or whatever you want to call it about the Sixgill Shark, and we don't have any control over that. But, where we're at now with the Surface Water Management Fund partnering with MAST for educational signage and outreach related to the Sixgill Shark and the importance of water quality in an amount not to exceed $10,000 is a year-round thing. That, the education, the importance of water quality, that never stops, I hope. So they're conflating two different things into one thing. And I think what we have before us, I would like to see this start happening now so that it is building to and can take place all year round. And there seems to be the funding and the willingness to do that, so let's get her done. Thank you.
Councilmember Harris, go ahead.
Just every event requires the support of the city. And I don't know how, I really am taking this whole Destination Des Moines thing seriously. And if you seriously want to make Des Moines a destination, you have to make every event just be a banger, okay? And you educate more people if you get more people to show up. And what you end up, if you have the city participate in any event, which they have to in some way, shape, or fashion, you basically ask people to do, pick a number, 70% the effort, and then you don't get all of the people that you really want to. I don't know how else to say that. I'm trying to be supportive because actually the idea with more planning is really good. And so, that's all. That's as generous as I can be. Thank you.
I would like to make a statement then now too. So to me, this is primarily about education, outreach, partnership, and we've got a checkbox here from our swim. They have an education requirement. They get to check a box that they've done some things, they've spent some money on it. To me, if this doesn't ever turn out to be a destination event with, several thousand people coming to it, it's still like Stormfest. It's still education for families and children and community members. It still does this really cool thing for not very much effort, and it checks some boxes. So to me, I'm super excited about that. All in favor. It's really great for the MAST, really great for Donna, really great for our swim department. And if it doesn't work out to be a destination thing, they can figure that out. Kind of like what Deputy Mayor Steinmetz said. But we get our benefit out of it, so, as a city. Councilmember Mahoney.
I don't, yeah, I agree. This is just an ongoing process that would be forward. The fact is really it's this simple, is it's a proclamation that we would be doing. Even if a city official wasn't there, Russ would be reading it to whoever was there. Wouldn't be, if it turned into something else than that, great. But I think it's just important to talk about clean water and what our sea life is. I would just say that we go with the vote on moving this to 2026 to review it for that council that comes forward then, and then vote on the other one and move on to our board and committee reports.
Okay, now I need some clarity. What do you think that you're?
So he made a motion.
Postponing what? Are you postponing this $10,000?
No, I'm not postponing anything. He made a motion to have the 6th Avenue come back in 2026. I seconded it. Then we also had the other motion that, on the friendly amendment, that we needed to vote on and vote down, and then we were done with the business, as far as I understood it, right?
Is that, I don't think that's what he motioned. I don't think that was his
My motion was to postpone the event and the signage and everything. I'd be cool, I'd be cool with August. I just don't think it's the wrong.
I wondered, he didn't actually then not go ahead.
But as a clarification, we're not talking about funding an event.
No,
Right,
no.
so there is no, this is so there's a signage and then educational,
An educational component.
stormwater, healthy sound component. So there's
And so, Councilmember Harris,
Mayor, right now, you have to vote on whether you want to delay everything to
Everything to
2026.
2026.
That's the vote that should be taken right now.
And Councilmember Mahoney
But he
misunderstood his
He
second.
seconded it though, so that's where we're at.
Okay, so
You guys can vote on that.
now,
please.
let's take the vote. All in favor of postponing all this to 2026, raise your right hand. Councilmember Harris, all in favor, all opposed to postponing everything. Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, Councilmember Oxiger, Councilmember Grace Matsui, Councilmember Mahoney, and myself. That motion failed, 6-1. Now we are on the motion to, I will read it. I move to authorize Citrus Water Management Fund to partner with MAST with educational signage and outreach related to the Sixgill Shark and the importance of water quality in the amount not to exceed $10,000. That is the motion. We've had discussion. All in favor of that motion, raise your right hand. Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, Councilmember Oxiger, Councilmember Grace Matsui, Councilmember Mahoney, and myself, all opposed. Councilmember Harris opposed. Motion passes 6-1. Okay. Thank you for the coaching. All right, we're on, yes, sir.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are we anticipating an event this year?
I can answer that.
It sounds like you have a council member who can answer it.
There was just going to be something kind of organic at the Mass Center with the reading of the proclamation. It was going to involve divers. There'd probably be some kind of communication out to various educational channels, but it wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary. It was just to declare that day Sixgill Shark Day. Our intent wasn't to have dancing sharks and all kinds of other silliness. We'll take it from where it goes, but it was really just to recognize the creature and educate people about it. That's all.
I was just, the time is short, and we also have.
Is this a discussion that can be taken off?
Yeah.
This is.
Point of order.
We are all
Business has
done,
been
right,
disclosed.
we're all done with that, so. Okay, we're on to new business now. This is a time to, new agenda items for consideration. This is a time for the purpose of proposing new business items for discussion on a future agenda that also have not been previously seen or been heard by the council. This is not a time for our council action or questions about old business. Council members can submit questions or seek updates on previously discussed business to the city manager at any time. Do any council members have new business they would like to propose? All right, we'll move on to council member reports, and we're going to start with Councilmember Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor. I only have one thing, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before. We fulfilled the last of our, we had a decision on commemorative streets. As you recall, we did Backstage Alley, we made 223rd, the honorary Waterland Way, and we had Jack, because that was the we had doing something for Jack, because Jack's Alley had been one of the names that had come out of the survey that happened and then what the CAC did. And so what was great is there was about 50 people that showed up on the corner of Waterland Way and 7th Avenue by the ABC Grocery. There's a bench there, and there was a dedication to Jack Kelsey and his mom, Norma. And it was very touching. Jack was in tears. He pretty much pulled most of the people from any business or whatever that would follow him so they could show him his new bench. I have actually seen him come and sit on his bench when he makes his rounds. But one of the things about Jack and what he represents to the city, and I said it at the meeting, and I thought it's so true, is Jack represents the good in this community. He doesn't care who you are, where you come from, what color you are, what your diversities are, anything like that. He just loves you and says hi. And that is somebody that can make it there through life without any of the restraints we all carry, the prejudice and so forth. He has none of those. And I thought that honoring him that day and that bench represents that goodness that this community has. That's all I had, Mayor.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. There's a couple people I'd like to thank. Staff did an excellent job of supporting the event. And she just left, or she's walked out for a second, but Tina Carey did a great job of videoing it and putting it out. So I just want to say thank you to them.
Thank you. Councilmember Grace Matsui.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind folks that we, I believe, still have tickets for sale to support Rotary, and some of that money is coming back to Parks and Rec here at the City of Des Moines at the Swing for a Cause event on Saturday, April 27th. I don't play golf, but I'm going to try because some of that money is coming right back here. So I'm really hoping that I might see some of you there and support our community. I believe some of the proceeds also goes to the Des Moines Area Food Bank. I hope someone here is going to talk more about Eggstravaganza. We also have an egg hunt coming up with our downtown businesses. I believe those are actually on the same day, so we might need to talk about that sometime soon. And yes, that's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. No comments tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Oxker.
Do you know whether or not you shank or you slice? Because I want to know where to stand. I would just like to acknowledge last Saturday the hands-off demonstration that was at Big Catch Plaza. Truly amazing. The number of people that came out and are expressing, concerns about democracy and all of that, and it was really inspiring. The number of people that you wouldn't expect to see. They don't usually go to rallies or anything, but some of the things that are happening on a national level are having a definitive impact on our citizens. And so I want to thank everybody that came out, and there's going to be another one next, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday.
And could you say that it wasn't that April 19th?
April 19th.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember, Councilmember Harris.
Thank you. Let's see, a couple of things here. The first air quality monitor in 50 years that is, tasked with airport emissions has just gone live north of the airport. And we have funding for its twinner here in Des Moines, which survived the state budget. So having two will be incredibly valuable for scientists because the planes go in different directions. The original idea was to have 6, but it's been like pulling teeth to get 2, and the fact that it took Puget Sound Clean Air almost 4 years to get that thing live, and we have been able to get this going this year, means that we're doing something right. I attended with Councilmember Oxiger the South King Housing Homelessness Partnership dashboard presentation. It's proprietary, but I would encourage all my colleagues to take a look at it. I found it just enlightening to have to basically quantify our housing stock, its condition, how many units we have available, because it's not just a question of building things, it's a question of preserving what you have, and we need to do a lot better, because frankly, if we don't get off the dime here, it's one of the reasons I'm so big on the port packages. If we don't protect it, there's a distinct possibility our quantity of housing could decrease in the next 5 years. That's just a shocking thing. So if you want, get with Councilmember Oxiger. I guess he's the liaison. And yeah, it's worth a look. I attended the Emergency Management Advisory Committee thing yesterday, and I didn't think it was anything worth noting, but there always is. With FIFA this year and next year, they brought up the notion that we should probably consider having language materials for the teams that come here. For example, in June, PSG, France is going to be here. It's a big deal, and so you can expect a couple hundred Frenchmen on the Sound Transit, and maybe having a flyer or a QR code for the teams, depending on their nationality, is something we talked about because they are going to be using the light rail. And last but not least, I did attend the, I will call it a protest thing last Saturday, or I walked by and talked to people, and I was, boy, the creative profanity that I saw on some of these signs, God bless everyone. It was packed, and it was really peaceful, and that's always, whenever there's any kind of event like that here, I am always just really, people are always respectful and profane, and that's a wonderful thing. So, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
A lot of my stuff may have been covered already, but, I was at the Jack's Bench ceremony. It was wonderful. It was very moving. And Jack was truly, truly touched, and that's a great thing. We also discovered that down at Red Robin in the bar, they actually have one of those little rubberized bar pads that says Jack drinks here. I don't know where they got it, what it was, but it's just it's a very cool little thing. Jack is just a huge member of this community. Mayor Buxton and I met with a representative from Patty Murray's office, talked about funding issues, because that's what everybody's talking about right now. I'll let her go into more detail if she wants. We had the first meeting of the Citizens Advisory Committee, and it was a very good meeting, and I would like to send a shout out to Victoria Andrews, who agreed to be our scribe and was busy trying to get down everything everybody was writing on big sticky, the giant sticky stuff that you put on the wall and write on, and then she did excellent minutes from that. So thank you very much. You know, as far as the Rotary golf, I'm going to be there, and I haven't played golf in several years, and you know, it'll be challenging. My shank is probably more lamb than it is golf, but you know, if the senior staff wants to challenge the council, would the council be up for that? I'm going to be there.
As long as you don't quit your day job and go.
Yeah. Nope.
I just thought, I am not a golfer, but you guys are.
Oh, it's not about golf. It's about raising funds for good cause.
You're inspiring me. Yeah, you're inspiring me. Well, so what was
just heard 4. We need 6.
What day is it? April?
We should see if we get captured.
April 27th?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, well, I think so. I'm 95%.
Tim, you're golf.
I'm not supposed to pick this up on my.
You probably beat all of us, but.
April 27th is a Sunday.
I'm sorry, hold on. It's a Sunday.
So I can do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
My fault, I announced it wrong.
Okay, Sunday.
Let's get this. We'll get this figured out when we're off the record.
Staff, I heard.
Yeah.
Oh, AJ, I got a nod.
So the council is challenging staff. You guys figure it out, because we stood up.
Well, I'm playing, so the staff will win.
It's not about winning.
Yes, it is.
And then the last thing, I was, you know, as mentioned before, I was at the hands-off demonstration downtown. It was wonderful. It was a very, it was loud, but it was peaceful. You know, I don't remember anything particularly profane, but, you know, I want to thank Seniors for Democracy, who's a group out at Wesley, I believe primarily, who put this all together. And there were 400 plus people there. It went, I mean, we had Marine View Drive lined from where Des Moines Memorial Drive comes in, or Marine View Drive, right about there, on all 4 corners, all the way up to the next major street, which I believe is 220, what? Right, where Alina's is. 220th. I mean, that was really pretty amazing. So just a lot of people there, creative signing, and, you know, good vibes, and generally a very positive message, you know, about our country. So thank you very much.
We did take some of your time, Harry. I'm sorry. I know. Okay, well, thank you. Lots of stuff going on. I appreciated being able to attend the annual Judson Park Pancake Breakfast. That was really fun, visiting with the folks up there, and it's a great fundraiser to help other folks be able to stay living there. I had an inspirational visit with a former Federal Way mayor, Mary Gates. There's not very many of us women mayors over the years, and so it was very inspiring. She's in her upper 70s now. It was as a result of a meeting at the, there's also this cool American Association of University Women, and they meet on a regular basis, and they had invited me as a speaker. That was inspiring too. I got to sit with Mayor Jim Farrell, and we just talked about our cities, and so then I met this former mayor, and I appreciated her visiting with me, kind of speaking into my life. I also appreciated that Megan from Patty Murray's office met with us, talked about revenue possibilities for the city. You know, the possibility that Midway Park is in the balance for some funding. Green projects, as you all know, are being compromised, and not much is sure, but it was really, it's a great connection. It's always great to invest in these relationships because you don't know what's going to be coming down the pike. You want to look for opportunities to support our city, and that's a really, getting these relationships with our federal representatives is really important. I want to, Deputy Mayor Steinmetz and I, every month, write a welcome card to every new business that gets a business license in the city of Des Moines. And we don't really ever talk about that. We have this little welcome card, and we sign it. It's got info. It says a little thing over, hope they are successful and prosperous here in Des Moines. And So, but we just wanted to mention, give some shout outs, new and updated laundry day in the Safeway parking lot on 216th, nice and clean and updated, check it out. We've talked before about Zev Co-op electric car sharing down in the marina, they got their business license. And then Des Moines Market, they were gonna do, that is the old 7-Eleven right across from the Taco Time. And check it out, it's a cool little place, they've got lots of, a big assortment of food and wine and it's nice reopening. I don't know if they're gonna do a ribbon cutting. If they do, I'd be happy to go, but go check them out. South End mayors met. Big concern, you've heard, the levy that's coming up, that's gonna be super expensive if the voters vote for it, but we've got these other big levies coming up that this county is it's gonna weigh heavy on property owners. These are all property levies coming up. And so that's a big concern to a lot of the electeds, not just the mayors. Coming up in our community, check the weekly city manager's report. So you don't have to be on Facebook to see it. You can just type in on our council website. There's this huge list of events. Bonnie does a fantastic job digging up everything that's happening everywhere. So check the weekly city manager's report. And when I put my newsletter out, it's in there too. So you'll be able to be up to date on almost everything that's happening. Well, that concludes our meeting for this evening. So the next meeting will be April 24th. It will be a city council regular meeting. Please pick up after yourself on your way out. And Councilmember Mahoney, would you like to take the motion?
I move we get the hell out of here.
Do I have a second? All right, all in favor? Yes. We are adjourned.